Hey YouTube, Dosm Rider here with my long-awaited Dosms Rambles on Power Rangers Time Force. So first off, I just want to thank everybody that either messaged me on YouTube or commented or even on Twitter about when these videos were coming back. I really appreciate it because I do all my videos, I guess, for fun to an extent, but these in particular I just started making as an outlet for all of my vomiting thoughts after I finished this rewatch I was doing of all of Power Rangers. And the videos did pretty well for what I thought they were going to do, and a lot of response from it. And I really like that in general, and I didn't expect there to be even more response when they went away. The reason is I just kind of got burnt out after watching MMPR through Lightspeed Rescue with some breaks in the middle, but it was still more or less straight through. I just kind of got PR'd out. And when I make these videos and watch the series, I don't want to not want to watch PR because that's like forcing myself to watch something is going to color my opinion negatively. And I want to be in a space where I want to watch PR so that I can properly enjoy it and analyze it and all that stuff. So I wanted to take a break, but so I'm back with Time Force. Thanks again. I can't promise that I'll go straight through the end with these videos, but they're definitely going to be a good chunk, hopefully, of these videos coming out over the next few months when I finish series. As of this recording, I'm about halfway through Wild Force, so it actually won't be too long until the Wild Force video, hopefully. But yeah. So, just thank you. So, let's go ahead and get started. I can't 100% remember how I structured these videos, and I probably should have went back and watched an old one, but this is basically how I do my stuff. I just turn on the camera and go, prep be damned. Okay, but so Time Force. Time Force used to be one of my top 5 seasons. Now, I don't want to say that in the sense that it's now all of a sudden trash, but it didn't hold up as well as I thought it would. It's still probably one of my more fun seasons, and there's still stuff and characters I really like about it. But the plot, let's just keep saying the word plot for like 20 minutes and then let you guys go. No, but there's a lot of really cool stuff about the plot I like. I love time travel stuff in general. I know that before it came out, and same with a lot of people, they thought Time Force or Time Ranger was going to be actually time traveling and fighting things through time, which would be cool if they did sometime, but it wasn't like that. It was basically just stopping Rancic from conquering the past. But it's still, I love plots like that in general. But probably the best thing about Time Force's plot was the villains, which we'll get in with characters, but they brought in some stuff that I feel like PR, ever since In Space at this point, had gradually started making villains less of generic, I want to destroy the world villains, and giving them a little bit more motivations, more so notably In Space. But there were some sprinklings in like Lost Galaxy and Lightspeed and whatnot. But Time Force, I think, was one of the most absolute sympathetic for both of its main villains of Rancic and Fracks. And I think that's where a lot of the plot came in, and there was a lot of stuff about like discrimination of mutants, which actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, sounds a lot like X-Men. I mean, it's kind of different, but the same, especially since they use the word mutants. But anyway, and then a lot of the other plot was about destiny, which mainly revolved around Wes and his destiny and what his father wanted for him. And when he took over as a Red Ranger to change his destiny, and then when Alex returned to take the powers from him, and like basically letting him know that everything's set in stone and proving that wrong. So there was a lot of cool stuff there. And that's basically all stuff I really liked. I liked the stuff with Destiny and Wes's development, and I really liked the villain stuff and sort of the more gray area that was introduced in that series. I think that was very cool. And overall, I think Time Force had some really great plots, and it's probably some of the best ones in the series overall. But what like sort of made it go down in my rankings was, I don't want this to sound petty, but there was a lot more filler than I remember. And I know all PR and a lot of Toku and other regular TV series in general have filler, but basically the storytelling wasn't as tight as I remember it being. And the filler wasn't really that enjoyable. Like, I'm watching Wild Force, and even some Lightspeed Rescue had some more enjoyable filler than some of the ones I watched. And I don't know, there was just something about it that just didn't sit as well with me as it did when I first watched it or the last couple times I rewatched it. So that's really just for that reason. But getting into characters, just really quick, I will say that I really like the cast in general. I think that they have a really good chemistry together. I don't really hate any of them. I think that it's one of those casts, kind of like that one and SPD, are like two of the most notable ones I can think of, where you can tell that they are at least somewhat friendly, or friends on the outside, like they're in prison. But it just, you can sort of feel the good chemistry between them, both out and inside the show, which I think is great, and it's good for the show. It was a good group. And there's a lot of there's some standout characters, but I feel like some of them, despite the fact that they are memorable, get a little bit lost in the shuffle. I feel like it's mainly about Wes, Jen, and Eric, and the other ones. Like I really like Trip. I like his personality. I like him as a character. He had some cool sort of story elements. But since everyone else got more focus, he got lost in the shuffle sometimes. But he's probably the most notable of the other three to me just because of his unique look and story. And something I want to comment on, which is really funny, is especially in the recent years, there's been a lot of jokes about when Saban has the Rangers all wear the same outfit, like in Samurai or mainly Megaforce. And people have noticed that they used to do it in the past, but they don't really bring it up as much because you have to hit Megaforce with everything you got apparently. But Time Force did it too, which the funniest thing about it is that Trip has that backpack, and granted, yes, he did have Circuit in there a lot, but he always has the backpack. Because like when they did change outfits, like they were I think painting one time and he had the backpack. The funniest was in Movie Madness where in the Old West and he has the backpack on. It was like they wanted to fully commit to always having the same clothes so much that he had the backpack as like a permanent fixture. I think I just watched Reinforcements of the Future in Wild Force as well, and he had it again, like but with his Time Force suit on. I think it was. It was just really comedic to me. But for like Katie and Lucas, I feel like they're the most forgettable. Lucas, I just always think of, oh, he likes cars, and Katie was strong. There were things I liked about both of them. Katie was probably a bit more adorable, but I feel like they were the more two lost characters, and I don't really have a whole lot to say about them other than that I didn't really hate them, but they're not really my favorites or anything. But the three core ones, I think Wes is probably my favorite. I know a lot of people's favorite is Eric, and he is probably one of my more favorite characters, but I just really liked Wes. I liked his personality. I like how he had fun being a ranger at first. I thought there was just something sort of refreshing about his enjoyment. And he was kind of a rookie, but he wasn't like cripplingly inexperienced. And I thought he had a really good arc of wanting to change his destiny. And it wasn't so much of a huge change, but you do gradually see him become more of a responsible and heroic character. And I just overall enjoyed his arc more. Than Eric's, even though Eric could arguably be a little bit deeper, maybe? I don't know. I just really liked Wes's story, and I like him as a character. I just find him very likable. Now, Jen is one of the most popular female Rangers because it's not like we hadn't had stronger female Rangers before, but she was much more of a take-charge female Ranger than we had in the past. She led them a lot, and she had a lot of interesting backstory elements with when she thought Alex was dead, and sort of her revenge story, and sort of have to pull back from that. And you can always see a lot of her stories about obviously her romance with Wes, which is probably one of the more well done romances throughout PR, but also like gradually letting go of that anger, but you can always still see it there, even after you find out Alex is alive, and then even in Wild Force before Rancic's quote unquote redemption, you can still see it when she first sees him. Like, so I think she played that really well. But so she was definitely a unique character for girl Rangers at the time, even though I personally think characters like Crone are a little bit more interesting. But so I definitely see why people like her, and she is a good character. And Eric, what I like about Eric is a lot of people like Eric. That's not what I like about Eric, is that I want to just be a sheep. No, but and you see why, because he was a pretty cool character. I mean, he was a badass, but what I like about him is the uniqueness of having a sixth ranger that really never worked with the Rangers up until the very end. Like, he did work with Wes at the final battle, and then they joined up in the Silver Guardians, but throughout, like, 99% of the series, granted he would, when footage called for it, would fight with the Rangers and help them, but he led the Silver Guardians the whole time. He never officially came around to becoming a part of the team in any sense of the way, and I like how unique that was, and it's not always necessary. It would be cool someday to see another Ranger do that, or maybe possibly different, smaller factions of Rangers. Like if we had a Ninja Storm structure where we had a 3-team and a 2-team operating independently from each other. And I think that's what I liked, is how unique that was. And again, coming back to some of the stuff I mentioned in my top 5 PR video, is I also like that he wasn't so goody-goody. In the old series, it was always so much so, everyone was so goody-goody, and it was like you couldn't be a Ranger if you weren't like that. Even in Dino Charge now, they're like, oh man, you made fun of her taste in music, you're not worthy of being a Ranger. And I like that they established that you don't have to be a complete goody two-shoes, and you can be kind of a jerk, and and not be perfect, but still be a ranger and do these heroic things. And I like that lean towards that. And I liked the sort of rivalry between him and Wes, the sort of opposing of their backgrounds. And I felt that I understood why he was upset at Wes, because he had to work so hard for everything. And Wes didn't have to, but he was basically throwing it away from his perspective. But I feel as it went on, like Wes, I see why Eric was mad initially, but it was like, the more you get to know Wes, it was obvious he wasn't a spoiled rich kid, so I felt like Eric held on to that anger a little bit too long. But regardless, I still did like that dynamic. Now, the biggest part I want to get into, I was going to talk a little bit about Alex. There's not a whole lot to say other than I think that Jason Fon did a really good job of differentiating those two. And it is kind of funny how they worry so much about like the disrupting the timeline, and then they leave the Time Force morphers behind with them and stuff like that. But he did a good job playing Alex and differentiating those two. I really don't have too much to say about that. I just wanted to touch on that. I repeated myself twice. But anyway, the big chunk of probably what I want to talk about is the villains. Both Rancic and Fracks are great. I really like Rancic a lot. His performance can be a bit over it sometimes, but I like that he's a unique villain, because what a lot of people probably know, but Gluto, his suit or character, was actually the main villain of Time Ranger. And he was just kind of a character that sat in the background and put himself away at the end, literally. But Rancic, he was the most... I would say Corone was very sympathetic as well, but she was like basically brainwashed to an extent over the years. But Rancic was like, you sort of understood where he was coming from. He was basically being discriminated against for being a mutant and treated horribly by humans. And you feel sorry for him. And very early on, too, you feel sorry for him. And he definitely turned that into a very evil hatred. And even doing stuff like killing Frax's last remains of his humanity, just definitely went really deep into it. But you always did feel a layer of sympathy, which was unique. A very almost human-esque motivation. I mean, he's basically a human-esque person, but I mean, if you know what I mean. Like, compared to all these years of just, oh, this is a monster, they're evil, they want to do evil things, but to have these complex motivations. And that was really weird. But I like how it ended. I feel it could have been done a little bit better with his affection for his daughter throughout, but I like how it was him almost hurting his daughter in the heat of battle that really sort of set him apart. That really slowed him down and made him realize what he was doing. And I thought that was a nice... I would have liked to know who Rancic's mom was. Not Rancic's mom. Nadira's. Because that kind of would have added to it. Because he's like, no one will ever love me. I'm like, well, someone had to love you for a night. But, okay, and then Fracks, I think, is almost more tragic because he was just this really good guy, this really good doctor who helped Rancic out. He was one of the few humans that wasn't hunting him, and because Rancic had such a hatred, he betrayed him instantly, and he rebuilt himself, which is kind of comedic seeing him rebuild himself. It would have been cooler if they would have been like, I transferred my consciousness, because like the concept of a guy bleeding out and like roboting himself up was kind of funny. But the way that was done, regardless of the comedy of the actual scene, for me, the backstory behind it, I think, is in a lot of ways more tragic, because Rancic was so adamant about how terrible humans was, and he encounters one that's not, and betrays him, and then turns him into an evil person. And I like that Fracks was very twisted from what happened to him, but I like that at the end, through seeing Nadira sort of change, that his sort of hope was restored a little bit, so it wasn't totally gone. And Fracks is definitely one of the most tragic and, I think, complex characters. And it was interesting, and it's not... When I was younger, when I watched it, it wasn't something I expected. I mean, you sort of got some vibes about Fracks, about like his mistrust in Rancic and maybe a little disdain, but like when they revealed the backstory, I was pretty surprised. But I want to touch on Nadira for just a minute, because I really did like what they did with her in the finale of her she helped that person give birth, which I feel like is unprecedented for what we're like. I feel like they wouldn't do that anymore in PR. I mean, but I liked the way they did that and saw her seeing the good side of humanity and sort of making that the catalyst for not only her character but for Rancic, and bringing a lot more attention to the humans versus mutants thing. The only thing I really didn't like about that is I feel it could have been done much earlier. It probably is exemplified by the fact that I binge watched this, So, like, whereas there'd be a week between the finale and subsequent episodes, I watched like 3 episodes and then the 3 finale episodes. So it's all smushed together. So it happens very quickly. I feel like maybe 3 to 5 episodes before that, maybe have something happen and start to slowly build it. It would have made it a lot better. Also, mostly because before that arc at the very end for Nadira, she was a very mustache twirly generic villainess who was like very cartoony, over the top. I just want to do evil and steal pretty things. And there wasn't a whole lot of moments of her character seeming like a more multi-layered character. So I feel like starting that sympathy for humans arc earlier, or even just making her a little bit more human throughout the series, could have made it even better, even though I liked that element of what they did. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the main chunk I wanted to cover. I'll try to be a little bit more concise about my Wild Force video, but overall, I still think Time Force is a good series, one of the better PR series. It didn't hold up quite as well in terms of the narrative being as tightly wound, that doesn't sound right, just tightly woven together as I thought it was, and I didn't enjoy a lot of it as much as I used to, but it still has some really good and unique characters for the time, and some good storylines, and some of the most interesting villains in the series. So if you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend checking it out. I suppose the only other thing I want to touch on, which I feel I'm going to have to mention in a lot of these videos here on out, is I know a lot of people that either know of or that have seen it. I personally haven't seen much of any of it, but I know that Time Force and Wild Force are both very similar to Time Ranger and Gal Ranger. I have seen Gal Ranger, so I will be bringing that up in Wild Force, but something I'll say right off the bat is it's still not a translation. If it's anything like what Gal Ranger is, what I like about it is they basically take a lot of the basic stuff from the series, the basic framework, more so than the Disney seasons, but a lot of the outlines, but they always add in one thing specifically. They change a lot of things around to make the series different, but there's always one specific large plot that's their own, which is Rancic, which, like I said, Gluto was the villain in Time Ranger. I don't know anything about the other stuff involving that, but Rancic is unique, kind of like Master Org for Wild Force was unique, and the way we did Decker for Samurai was unique. So, regardless of whether I ever see Time Ranger, I still think I would love a lot of Time Force because they did change things enough to make it its own beast. But anyway, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this. If I forgot anything I used to go over, anything more in depth, let me know. If there's anything I can change so I can make room for the Wild Force, make changes for the Wild Force video. I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch one of my old ones so I remember a little bit about the way I used to structure these. But yeah, thanks again for all the interest in these. They are going to be back at least for a good while. Like I said, I'm halfway through Wild Force. So hopefully sometime in the next month from when this was uploaded, you'll see a Wild Force video. And then the series are shorter from here on out, so it might be easier. But yeah, thanks again. Until next time, make sure you check out the Crazy Podcast at writer@rambles.com. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.